Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Trans India. Real people, real emotions. This week, we continue our interaction with Mr. Ramki Ramakrishnan, and while we dig into his past, we also take a look at what Ramki is up to these days after retirement. Well, is he really retired? Let's find out.
So you've been at the drawing board of many of these truck designs. So what is the ideology while designing a truck? What are the parameters that you look at closely?
So Girish, not speaking from Tata Motors perspective alone, whatever Tata Motors has done, I'm sure over a period of time, someone or the other, including me from Tata Motors, would have spoken about it. And there's a lot in public domain about how Tata Motors approaches truck design. Let me give you a maybe slightly different perspective or my own reading of the whole situation. First, within Tata Motors, and second, overall commercial vehicle industry. At the beginning of the century or before that, we were very inward looking. We would look at what we can do. We would think that what we know about trucks or buses is the right thing for the industry, and we would produce what we can. We would produce what our vendors could. That was the approach towards making commercial vehicles. We went through a couple of rough times in the marketplace, one due to our own doing, one due to overall industry, which sat us thinking, and we really introspected at that time to see what we're getting wrong and how we should do things differently. So at the beginning of this decade, this century, some things changed. So from being inward looking, from looking at what we can do, what our vendors can do, what our manufacturing can do, we started looking at what does the customer want? What is the customer's experience? What does the customer's customer or the users want? And the moment we started looking at that, few more players came into the picture. The customer's customer, the customer's driver, and someone who attends to the vehicle, maintenance and repair of the vehicle, the mechanic or the fleet manager. The moment you take all these views, and in buses, the passengers who travel in the buses, it changed our whole perspective of how vehicles should be designed. The other dimension is in terms of business. We were what is called a cost plus model. You would make a vehicle, it would cost us something, you would say cost plus, and this is the price in the marketplace. We changed that approach. We started bringing in a business perspective. What does that mean? It's a commercial vehicle. From the customer's perspective, he's buying it for a commercial purpose. He wants to earn money out of it. So for it to be a viable commercial proposition, it has to generate revenue, plus the costs have to be such that he generates profits.
True.
Enough for him to reinvest in the business and grow the business. Similarly, from the company side, for us to be profitable, we also have to look at how much we are investing in design, how much we are investing in manufacturing, and therefore how much should we produce and sell in order to be profitable. We also had to look at the competition because we were foreseeing it may be a duopoly for some time, but in time to come there will be more players. We cannot be blind to what others can do, and therefore in order to be competitive, you can't continuously keep cost plus pricing. You have to look at what the customer is willing to pay or what someone else is willing to give. The moment those perspectives came in, it changed our design philosophy, it changed our manufacturing philosophy, it changed our sourcing philosophy, changed our marketing philosophy. It was a transformation. It took us a few years to get everything right, but having got that, I think for several years after that, we were able to appeal to the customers much better, and we were able to withstand a lot of competition between 2001 and 2010. That is when the EX series was born. Mm-hmm. We had a proliferation on the commercial vehicles. We came into the small commercial vehicle segment and so on.
Like we spoke earlier, you were not just selling trucks, but you were selling solutions. The next step was selling TCO. That is what was the message that was going out, the total cost of ownership. How did that model come about?
So the interactions with the customer, which I explained a little while ago, we went down to understanding their business over the life cycle of the truck. So someone would keep a truck in those days for 3 years. Now it's even going up to 10 or 12 years.
Right.
Throughout the lifetime of that vehicle, how much money do they earn? How? How much money do they spend? Why and where? Once we started getting a detailed understanding of that, then our design philosophy, instead of looking at what technology is available, we were starting to look at what technology can help to improve the revenue. What technology can help to reduce the cost. So on one side, we were looking at how to make higher tonnage vehicles, how to reduce the weight of the vehicle so that payload can go up. And on the other side, start looking at how to reduce the operating expenses. And the big chunks, even now, are fuel and tire.
Yes.
So constantly looking at improving fuel efficiency, constantly looking at improving tire life. And the tire also has an impact on the fuel efficiency.
Correct.
That's how radial tires were
Yes.
brought in. So those were the significant design efforts, sourcing efforts, and technology development efforts. We also started communicating that to customers because some customers are aware and savvy, whereas many other customers are follow the lead,
Right.
follow the herd. So we had to educate them on the life cycle cost of a vehicle. And once we started doing that, people are able to understand and appreciate why we are doing something, why we are designing something in a vehicle, how they should get that benefit out of the vehicle.
And I think plus with trucks now costing 30, 40, 50 lakhs, that understanding of TCO was very, very important.
It's a very good point you make. 2002, when Tata Motors launched the 2213 at that time, 3-axle truck, he launched it at 4,25,000. Similar capacity truck today would be 40 lakhs, 10 times. And in the time period, diesel price has probably gone up from 15, 16 rupees to close to 100.
Yeah.
Driver salaries have gone up, maintenance crew wages have gone up, tolls have got introduced and so on. So there's a huge proliferation of expenses. Therefore, when we started appealing to customers about total cost of operation, life cycle operation, people began to understand. And that's the way forward. Even I would say some people are not fully into it, but that's the direction going forward. It's a capital investment.
Absolutely.
And someone who's buying 10 trucks, someone who's buying 100 trucks, it's a big one.
I mean, if you just look at the cost in isolation, it's a scary figure. Nobody would get into this business. So I remember seeing the first fully built Tata Prima truck. I mean, it was, the first thing was like, wow, what a beautiful truck. What was the thought process in getting a truck that at that time seemed much ahead of time?
So I'll take you back to the explanation I was giving you about the shocks we had at the end of the last century and the beginning of this century. It set us thinking, and also we started looking at not just existing competition, but potential competition. What is possible in the future? On one side, we were clear in our minds that being the second most populous country, a country with growing youths, a country where slowly policy decisions were beginning to shape the country's economy better. In some time to come, we would probably be where China was at that time, was beginning to become at that time. And now if you see, it's turning out to be a reality. And that kind of economic development happening, the country was a big opportunity. And therefore, not just existing players, there could be new players from within the country. More possible was people from outside the country who had existing technology from different parts of the world. They have technology in the developed parts of the world. They also have technology in the developing parts of the world. So they could pick and choose something which is relevant to the country. And for someone who is sitting on 80% market share, that can easily go away, or a significant portion that can get sliced if we left room for competition to come in.
Sure.
With that in mind, we started looking at A, what can we do to prevent global competition from entering into the country? B, what can we do to continue to be the leaders within the market in the face of domestic competition, either existing or new entrants coming to the picture? So our approach is therefore two-pronged. On one side, we continue to grow our existing portfolio, make that better, make that more affordable, make that more efficient, and so on. At the other end of the spectrum, we started looking at how do we prevent global competition from coming inside. So the thought process at that time was about a world truck, similarly a world LCV or ICV,
Right.
and a kind of world bus. So the Prima, the Intra, and the Divo, respectively, in trucks, in LCV, ICV, and buses were born. And over a period of time, all of them came to being. In buses, it was also the Star Bus. So those are the three broad brand names and ranges under which we looked at creating products which could defend the company against global competition. If we're looking at global competition, therefore, we look at what are they doing in the developed countries and developing countries. A lot of study went in, a lot of benchmarking went in, based on which we crafted something which were close to developed country specification, but prices close to a developing country like India. That was the approach we had taken. And I can tell you, while the volumes may vary over time, different products may have different successes. At the overall level, it did many things, it brought in many benefits, not just to Tata Motors, but along with us to our vendors, to the other OEMs, to customers, and the overall industry as well. Over a period of time, it turned out to be very beneficial. How do I say that? It was a significant technology jump. So our vendors, key vendors, had to bring in technology from their partners or their principals outside the country, and some vendors had to invest in that technology. So their technological levels grew up. For us to make a truck like Prima or a truck like Ultra or a bus like Divo, we had to collaborate with many people. And therefore, we had to lift up our own design capabilities, our own technological capabilities. The manufacturing processes had to change. Some places, new lines had to be laid. So the whole table of manufacturing quality and efficiency, that lifted up. Now, along with us, with our vendors and us, the rest of the industry was watching on the sidelines. Over some time, they also had to join in and do it. So they also went up. So as a result, the whole table grew. So while on one side we were trying to thwart the competition, as leaders in the commercial vehicle space, we were leading the change and transformation of the industry. So that's, to put in a very few words, what the thought process was behind trucks like Prima, trucks like Ultra, and buses like Divo and Starbus.
So you took the Prima a little further also with the Tata Prima T1 Racing. Now, what was the thought process there? What were you trying to show the world?
So Girish, if you look at cars, if you look at bicycles, or you look at even utility vehicles, racing is a sport which brings in a lot of admiration, a lot of adrenaline and appreciation. It also showcases the technology that if a car, a bike or a UV can withstand the rigors of a race, whether it's an on-track race or an off-track race, it just goes to show what's behind it, what kind of people are behind it, what kind of technology partners are behind it. So we extended that process and said, let's bring in a truck race into the country. And along with that, the other thing we wanted to do is glorify the driver. Well, there are many initiatives to address various requirements that a driver community needs to. This was one extreme form of bringing drivers into the picture. So we were looking at showcasing the Prima. We were also looking at glorifying the driver. The first two races, we only had the Prima, but international racers. The third and the fourth edition, we made sure that we groomed Indian drivers, and not drivers who were just racing drivers, but drivers picked from transporters. We shortlisted them, trained them, made them race worthy, and made them race. It suddenly brought the spotlight on the driving community. Drivers were thrilled. Drivers were thrilled not because they were racing. Drivers were thrilled because someone recognized them. Someone made them do what they thought was impossible. They were in their wildest dreams thought of racing a truck and winning prizes. It's brought the spotlight on them in a way nobody could imagine. So it did wonders for us. So for Tata Motors, people really understood what the Prima is, what are the technology behind it, and therefore by extension to the other product ranges as well. Our vendors who participated, they could also showcase what they did to bring a truck like Prima and make it a racing truck. Our dealerships, they also joined the race. They owned a couple of trucks. Plus the whole dealer community got together and many of our customers also joined. So it was a nice networking event for the entire transportation community, vendors, OEMs, truckers, and our international customers and distributors. They also came, all of them. And for them to see Prima in a race and then go back and say, this is the kind of truck we're making, it just changed the perception of our trucks in the international community.
We will continue our interaction with Ramki after this very short break. You are watching Trans India, real people, real emotions.
क्या आप जानते हैं एक ट्रक ओनर के लिए सबसे मुश्किल काम क्या होता है? अपने ट्रक के लिए रिटर्न लोड खोजना।
पर अब ट्रैकेट ट्रांसपोर्ट मार्केट ने इसे आसान कर दिया है।
वो कैसे?
ट्रांसपोर्ट मार्केट टाइम पर ट्रैकेट ऐप में आए हुए लोड पर अपना बेस्ट रेट भेजें, माल की डिलीवरी की डेट और टाइम सिलेक्ट करें और सबमिट कर दें, और ऑर्डर कंफर्म होने पर व्हीकल असाइन करें। है ना आसान? तो देर किस बात की? प्ले स्टोर ऐप पर टाइप करें TRAKET ट्रैकेट और डाउनलोड करें ट्रैकेट ऐप।
स्कूल बच्चों का दूसरा घर होता है और इस घर का ख्याल रखना एक प्रिंसिपल के लिए आसान नहीं। पढ़ाई के साथ बच्चों का आराम, उनकी सेफ्टी, छोटी से छोटी चीज़ मेरी प्रायोरिटी है। वैसे ही स्कूल बस चुनना भी एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन था। पेरेंट्स का पीस ऑफ माइंड, मैनेजमेंट का भरोसा और बजट साथ लिए चलना पड़ता है। इसीलिए कभी कभी फर्म भी बनना पड़ता है। आखिर कोई अपने बच्चों की जिम्मेदारी मुझे दे रहा है तो कोई बजट की। लेकिन इतने सालों में एक चीज समझ आई है, अगर सही डिसीजन लें तो सबसे ज्यादा प्यार भी प्रिंसिपल को ही मिलता है।
चुनिए महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बसेस। यह है मजबूत ट्यूबुलर स्ट्रक्चर, एंटी लॉक ब्रेकिंग, एंटी रोल बार, पैराबोलिक सस्पेंशन, IMAX, वाइडर सीट्स और बेस्ट इन क्लास माइलेज के साथ बच्चों के लिए सेफ और बाकी सब के लिए सबसे स्मार्ट चॉइस, महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बस।
Welcome back to Trans India, real people, real emotions. We are in conversation with Ramki Ramakrishnan, a veteran in the automobile industry who spent 38 years in Tata Motors.
Sir, on a personal note, how much important was this for you? Because I remember the first race after the flag off, I literally saw you jumping with joy. What was the emotion like?
I really cannot describe it, Girish. It was...
Because I feel privileged to have witnessed that moment.
There were so many things on mind. We were... With the vehicles had to run. They had to complete the race. There should be no mishap, no vehicles hurting each other, no driver.
Right.
That was one big thing. Then all the people who had come to watch it, they should appreciate what we are trying to do. They should get the messages that we were wanting them to take away. The vendors who were participating, we had to make sure that what they brought to the table worked, as well as they also went back satisfied that this is something. Because some of them who bought the race teams, they also had to get their money's worth. So there were many things that were on our mind, and we wanted everything to, fall in place. That moment when the last truck finished the race, it was everything culminating. Oh my God, it's done.
But do you see the races coming back?
I really want them to come back. And it should not be just Tata Motors who's doing it or just Prima which is doing it. I think the entire community should bring something like this to happen, and not just one race once in the year at one place in the country, but it should be done at several places. Not so much maybe to showcase the technology of the products, which itself is useful to do, but also to showcase the variety of vehicles that everyone is creating, the rapidly evolving emission norms, safety norms, and the rapidly evolving customer requirement. It's an opportunity to showcase the range in multiple locations in the country, number one. Number two, it's an opportunity for the entire community to get together, network a lot more often. Three, the driving community. I come back to the driving community. For them to participate in something like this, it brings a kind of respect and glory to that community, which is really desperately, sorely needed. They are spending their lifetime inside a truck. Some of them are born inside a truck. They spend their entire life in a truck. They eat in a truck. They sleep in a truck. Some of them unfortunately die in a truck. But that profession doesn't get the respect and appreciation it deserves. They're moving the country's economy. Anything that's produced has to move from point of production to point of consumption. They're doing it. They're moving people, moving from their homes to their places of work, to the places of tourism and back home. They're protecting lives. No one respects them for that. And that community, if it is really getting what they deserve, the changes we're talking about in the transportation business, the changes we're talking about in the logistics, or reduction of logistics costs, etc., that transformation can truly happen in its entirety only if drivers are part of it.
And I think a lot of times the driver has been in the center of your designing process as well.
Very much.
A lot in and around the truck is designed for the driver.
Very much. Because he spends his lifetime inside the truck. The customer's business is made or broken by a driver.
Absolutely. So, moving away from commercial vehicles, there's been a lot of change in infra as well. You see your highways, expressways. How much has that helped the logistics industry on the whole?
Tremendous change, Girish. At the beginning of this century again, there were hardly any 4-lane roads. We were boasting of the largest national highway length in the world probably, but the number of paved roads, number of double-lane roads were very few. Over a period of the last 2 decades, 1 lane has become 2 lanes, 2 lanes has become 4 lanes, 4 has become 6. Totally new expressways have been laid between various centers of production and centers of consumption. As a result, many things have changed for the better. First of all, if you look at the average distance that a typical highway truck would cover, at the beginning of the century, it was probably around 25 or so kilometers per day. Today, it's over 40 kilometers a day. That itself is a very big difference. Second, if you look at fuel efficiency per se, apart keeping aside other technological changes, standalone simply because of the road, the improvement in average speed, the fuel efficiency would have improved significantly in terms of fuel liters per ton kilometer. I'm not talking about rupees per ton kilometer. Correct. Because that's influenced by fuel prices. Yes. But fuel per ton kilometer has improved. The third thing that has improved is, again, keeping aside any technological change made by suppliers or OEMs, the sheer reliability of vehicle has improved, sheer durability of vehicle has improved. That itself would add to the transporter's economics in a big way. Reliability, because it has to repair the vehicle less, not so much, right, as much as vehicle is on road earning money. Durability, they can keep the vehicle for a longer period of time. These are significant changes that have happened. There is a plus and minus as far as road safety is concerned. The plus part is because there are very few potholes, significantly safety has improved on that count. However, because the roads are very good, speeds have also improved. There is an impact of speeds on accidents in its own way.
Right. You just spoke about road safety. How seriously do we take that in India, especially because see, the drivers are not trained; they are merely cleaners turned drivers. We don't see a formal driver training school for the drivers as well. How much impact does that have?
Girish, we shouldn't be blaming only truck drivers here. I would blame everyone. It's not as if a truck driver who is not schooled lacks discipline. Unfortunately, even the other end of the spectrum who has gone through a college education or even a degree or a postgraduate, you see them drive their cars on road. You know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So it's a collective lack of discipline stemming from a lack of two kinds of training actually. One is what I call being civil training, and the other is of course the techniques of driving.
Right.
Both need a lot of improvement. People need to be schooled on social sense so that they are conscious their vehicle is not the lone vehicle on the road. There are others, users on the road, including other vehicles as well as passers-by, passengers, etc. And therefore they have to be conscious of their safety when they drive. The other is their own self-discipline in terms of are they driving under influence, are they driving when they are tired, are they following the lane discipline, are they following signals. There are many aspects. Some of this will come from training, some of this will come from education, and I think the enforcement, the government can play a much bigger role in terms of tightening all this, demanding a certain level of basic training and make it much stricter for people to get a license so that they follow these rules. Beyond that, using technology to enforce, well, there is some improvement there. I think a lot more technology can be used in terms of enforcing driving discipline on roads so that road safety can improve. The OEMs are doing a lot in terms of incorporating safety technology in the vehicle, partly mandated by regulation, partly their own initiative. And as I said earlier, we are fairly close to international safety standards on vehicles. But collective system has to work towards improving road safety. There's a lot more that can be done.
So, sir, while OEMs are bringing in safety systems which are not mandated by the government but an optional feature, so many transporters believe that, okay, while we may like to have it, our end customer does not pay us a freight premium for this. How do you tackle this? I mean, from an industry point of view.
Girish, I have a lot of respect for my customers. They are paying money and buying our products. And even bigger, they are transporting the country's produce for the government or for their customers. So I laud the service that they are providing as a system. That said, there are a few areas where I would ask transporters to do things differently. One of that is precisely what you're bringing to the table. Most of them, there are some exceptions, but most of them tend to be either short-sighted or taking shortcuts for what may seem justifiable reasons, or they have a rationale for doing it the way they're doing it. But they end up compromising on, first of all, the basic purpose of their business. Transporting goods safely, in time, at a respectable price. Right. They compromise that. The other thing they compromise is safety. The biggest thing, if you ask me, they're compromising on, coming back, a driver. That person can make or break a transporter's business. But the care for that person is not there at all. So these are some of the areas, and I'll explain a little bit in detail. I feel transporters can do a lot more. First, I talked of short-sightedness. Yes, a transporter who has borrowed money should be concerned about paying his installments, all of them in time, and make sure that he frees the vehicle. Right. Fair enough. But to do that doesn't mean that you overload the vehicle. To do that doesn't mean that you fit a tire which is not the right specification. To do that doesn't mean you adulterate the fuel. These are some of the shortcuts they take, some of the short-sightedness they have. The other things they do use spurious parts. Why? I mean, at the second or third year, they'll say, next year my vehicle is becoming free and I'm going to sell the vehicle. Why should I fit parts for the next owner? Right? Which is a short-sighted thing. You keep the vehicle running on road, you earn more money. You keep the vehicle running on road, your customer finds your service reliable, finds you a credible transporter. People don't look at that, unfortunately. Or the way they treat a driver, and there are a few aspects here. Everyone cribs about profit, everyone cribs about expenses, everyone cribs about diesel prices and the freight rate not catching up. But you look at the way they engage with the driver and look at the way they treat fuel efficiency. OEMs listen to that feedback and design a vehicle which was earlier, say, 4.5 kilometers to a liter. They struggle along with their vendors and make that vehicle give 5 kilometers to a liter. What does a transporter do? Fix 4 kilometers to a liter with his driver. There are two things they're losing here. One, they're losing what the vehicle is capable of delivering. Two, the driver is taking away some more of money. Why is the driver taking away that money? Because they don't pay him enough salary, they don't take care of his future interests, they don't take care of his family. This is not a good way of engaging with the driver from an individual's point of view, from a community member point of view, as well as from sheer economics of business. If 60% of your expenses, operating expenses, are fuel, what are you doing to improve your fuel efficiency? What are you doing to cut down your fuel cost? Is it adulteration of fuel? Is that going to help you reduce your cost? Or is it understanding that the company has designed the vehicle for 5 kilometers to a liter? How can I get 5 kilometers to a liter? Work with the company, work with the driver, make sure that you're not overloading the vehicle and you get that 5 kilometers to a liter. Give the driver an incentive for delivering 5 kilometers to a liter. Give him a good salary so that he doesn't steal diesel, adulterate diesel, or is intent on delivering better fuel efficiency to collect more incentive along with the salary. These are fundamental things that I believe transporters should change so that they can improve their own business as well as improve the driver community and improve the overall logistics.
And I think plus also tackle the issue of driver shortage, which has been a long-standing issue.
That will come along with drivers' respect.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
When you ask most drivers, they don't feel a respected member of the society. You ask their sons, what do you want to become when you grow up? They won't say this or that or that. They'll say anything but a driver.
Absolutely.
Driver छोड़ के मैं कुछ और भी बनने के लिए तैयार हूँ. That's not a good thing. And there are many professions where people feel so proud and say, I also want to become. A pilot son want to become a pilot, a doctor son want to become a doctor. Why should a driver son not want to be a driver? It's up to us, all of us in this, not just the government, not just the transporters, not just the OEMs, but all of us together have to work towards improving the respect we give that person. That person is standing in society. That's the only way to improve it.
So you touched upon alternate fuels in the beginning of the interview. Which do you think is going to be the next best to diesel, of course?
There's no one size fits all, Girish. Different technologies are available and different technologies are relevant for different types of commercial vehicles as well as for different applications. What do I mean? Take electric vehicles. One of them, and I'll articulate about the others also. There are certain advantages, no doubt, and there are certain constraints or challenges. With electric vehicles, you need a battery. You need a battery pack. It brings in a payload disadvantage. It brings in a space disadvantage. It may not matter in something like a small commercial vehicle because the size of the battery is small, the payload is small, and it doesn't occupy too much space. But when it comes to a large truck, then the space of the battery is much more, the weight of the battery is much more. It takes away from the payload of the truck. Right. Plus, you also bring in a complication of range. Well, range has improved over time, will probably improve in future. There is still an issue of range when compared to a small commercial vehicle, which will at best do 100 kilometers in a day in a small radius, versus a long distance truck, which you want to do anywhere between 400 to even 1000 kilometers in a day. You need a battery of that range. Or you need a way by which the battery can be swapped quickly, or a continuous charging. So the requirements are very different between small trucks and large trucks. So would battery technology be good for small commercial vehicles? Clearly yes. Would battery technology be suitable for large trucks? Definitely not for highway trucks. But if you flip it a little, take small commercial vehicles itself, between driving within the city versus driving intercity or slightly long distance or even interstate, some of these issues start to come in again with small commercial vehicles or light commercial vehicles. So you might need something else in small or light commercial vehicles itself, so that you don't face the issue of battery space, battery weight, range, and battery charging. If you take the trucks which are going to be used within city, for example, municipal applications, garbage cleaner, road sweeper, electric maintenance vehicles, they can very easily be electric because they don't need range, they don't need payload space, the space is not an issue. These are very potential candidates for pure electric application. Or even if you take something which has to take payload and has space, like a tipper, it's working in a very small confine within a mine, within a construction site. The radius is very small. It's possible to make that fully electric and get all the advantages of electric. If you need to change a battery, at the site you can easily change the battery and put another one and continue operation. So these are two typical examples I'm giving you where between a small and a big truck itself, different technologies may make more sense. And there are the development of electric infrastructure, the development of gas infrastructure, it's going to happen over a period of time. It's not going to overnight change all over the country. So your CNG filling stations, it's not going to happen all over the country at the same time. Or your battery charging, battery swapping infrastructure is not going to happen all over the country at the same time. Therefore, you might need different technologies for different routes for different vehicles. Buses in the city, you can make them pure electric, no issue. Intercity buses, you may want to look at even hybrid technology. You got electric, you got some other fuel also, whether in series or parallel. Right. So I honestly believe that all these technologies will get used in different vehicles for different applications. You have to choose what is most optimum. Or for example, hydrogen. There are two options right now, both technologies are available, tried, tested, may not be commercially viable as yet, but hydrogen in internal combustion engines, hydrogen in fuel cell, both technologies are available, tested and proven. Commercialization has to happen. Again, it's going to be incumbent upon availability of hydrogen, storage of hydrogen, etc., etc. So I think over a period of time, and as it evolves, different technologies are going to be applicable in different vehicles, in different applications, in different routes.
Complicated, of course.
Hell a lot complicated for everyone.
Everyone. Sir, finally, 38 years in Tata Motors, a long journey. What are you up to these days?
2-3 things. Before I get into any serious work again, which also I'm preparing for, focusing on some things which I missed during my working years, family, friends, catching up on relatives, and a few personal work which has been pending for a long time. Focus on some of the hobbies which I've not given much time and attention to. Music, I like to sing. So I'm spending some time to practice my singing and do on-stage singing.
Wonderful.
Photography, where I've, over the last few years, probably done it more seriously than earlier in my career. I want to spend much more time on photography. Coming to serious work, there are 2-3 things I'm exploring. One, another two I'm Another two I'm in the initial stages. One is in terms of contributing to the corporate world, contributing to corporate governance. I want to bring to bear the knowledge, experience, and skills I have in the corporate to other corporates in the role of an independent director. So I've prepared for that. I've undergone some tutorials. I've undergone a certification, masterclass for directors. So that is gone a considerable distance. The other avenue is in terms of consultancy. Consultancy could be to other OEMs. Consultancy could be to vendors. Consultancy to dealers and distributors. The third is in terms of training and coaching people involved in the automotive industry, because I have done many things, many functions, many businesses. That's another area which I'm looking at to contribute based on what I've learned. So those are areas which I'm looking at.
That was our interaction with Mr. Ramki Ramakrishnan. What a wonderful journey this has been. And it is so admirable that post-retirement, Ramki is pursuing his hobbies, photography and singing. Here's wishing Ramki, on behalf of all our viewers, all the very best for the future. We will be back next week with the 150th episode of Trans India, and we have a very special guest from a very special location. Stay tuned for updates. You have been watching Trans India, real people, real emotions. Until next week, stay safe and drive safe. Jai Hind.